The Carolina Hurricanes battle the New York Rangers at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on our Discovery Card Key matchup. Get your free credit scorecard today. Even if you're not a Discover customer, it includes your FICO credit score, and checking your scorecard won't hurt your credit. Learn more at discover.com/credit scorecard. Limitations apply. Doug Gottlieb and Joy Taylor in for Colin here in the Herd on Fox Sports Radio, Fox Sports 1, and the iHeartRadio app. Still reacting to last night's crazy night in the NBA. Look, I understand that there are people that disagree with me in terms of my evaluation of the assets that the Lakers were willing to move. And I do think that last night proved some of what I said to actually be true. Like Nick Wright and I have gone back and forth on his show, on my show. My show, by the way, is 3 to 6 Eastern Time on Fox Sports Radio, following Colin on many of these Fox Sports Radio affiliates. So whether it's on First Things First, his TV show, or on my radio show, or on social media, I just thought, look, it's just way too much. It's too much. I was okay. If you want to give away Brandon Ingram, fine. You want to give away draft picks, okay. But draft picks, Brandon Ingram, cap space, and Kyle Kuzma, who I think has the potential to be, borderline all-star, if he's not already borderline all-star. He's just learning to shoot the three. And then Lonzo Ball, who, despite the fact that his dad's doing everything in his power to napalm his time with the Lakers still are hopeful, as am I, that he can be a legit quality starting point guard. There's some things that he does that no one else in the world does. But some other cleaning up to his game that they need with an NBA offseason, because the truth about LeVar Ball is not really a basketball coach, didn't really know how to coach him. And though he did a lot of good things for his son, he didn't put him in position where he could immediately succeed the way that, say, a Trae Young could. He doesn't understand pick and roll basketball. The point is, I wouldn't have packaged both Zoe and Kyle Kuzma. But as reports that apparently the New Orleans Pelicans leaked out, they're willing to give them both up. And Ingram, who you don't have to love Ingram. And he wasn't great at times last night. He was selfish down the stretch there. Should have gotten the ball to LeBron James. But he is a 17-a-game guy. He is still very, very only 21 years old. He's going to continue to get better. The question is, how high is his actual ceiling? He's never going to be Durant, even though he looks a little like Durant, and there were thoughts he's not. But just because you're a notch or two notches below Kevin Durant, that's a notch or two notches below, if not the best, the second or third best player in the NBA, depending on how you want to rate him. The idea of giving up all three and first-round picks and cap space, to me, is a ridiculous, I think, over-evaluation and almost panic move by the Lakers. And Del Dem should have taken it. Look, there's a multitude of reasons he should have taken it. I mean, you're waiting on the idea that the Knicks, that don't have, in terms of personnel, anybody you really want. And even if they have the number one pick, there's so much unknown with the Knicks. They think they're getting Kevin Durant, but what if they don't? Because, Kevin Durant, he seems to handle the Bay Area media so well. Kevin Durant would probably handle the New York media really, really well, right? Like, if you struggle with the negativity in Oklahoma City and in Oakland, in terms of the media, how do you think KD is going to do in New York City? Because they're so gentle. And then even if you get Kevin Durant, do you get a Kemba Walker? Do you get a Kyrie Irving? What if you don't get either? Are you then willing to move off the number one pick if they even get the number one pick? And even if all those things work out and you get Kyrie Irving and you get Kevin Durant and you get the number one pick, do you want this? Or do you want to see what Zion is, because Zion fills up more seats? There's a lot of ifs there. The Lakers seemed desperate. The Lakers, by the way, this offseason will likely have a pick of a couple of other free agent options. They just do. And you were dealing with a team that was bidding on themselves, which is the one thing you're not supposed to do in business. Never bid against yourself. But they were. But you want to know the number one reason that Del Dem should have consummated the move? Because the guy he's really waiting on is the guy who engineered 3 or 4 of the greatest trades in the history of the NBA, Danny Ainge. And look, Danny Ainge, for his part, apparently said all options are on the table. Sure, we consider trading Jason Tatum for Anthony Davis, but we don't know what consider trading him. Like, does that mean that you would make him take the Gordon Hayward contract? Like, we don't. Danny Ainge doesn't know if he's going to have Kyrie Irving at the end of the year. If he has Kyrie Irving, then yeah, he'll probably be willing to make another grandiose move and get a great player. To take a listen, this was Danny Ainge earlier today talking about Kyrie Irving and the likelihood that they would re-sign Kyrie in the offseason. Hey, no, this time, Lucy promises that she's going to hold the football in place. I would ever. He's responsible for more GMs getting fired than Carmelo Anthony. So Dell Demps, who has authored a couple of the worst trades in league history, one that was so bad, giving away Chris Paul, that David Stern said, no. We're not doing that. Is gambling on either the Knicks getting the number 1 overall pick and dealing it for Anthony Davis, or getting the positive outcome, the good outcome, kicking the football that Danny Ainge is holding. They should have made the move when they had the chance. Let's get to Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
So it may not be the way he wanted, but LeBron did find a way to team up with Anthony Davis. He picked Davis in the All-Star draft, and there were also some tampering jokes to go around with that pick.
With my first pick in the second round, I'm going with Anthony Davis.
You sure you want him to be your teammate?
I'm very sure of that.
Isn't that tampering?
No.
Tampering rules does not apply on All-Star Weekend.
That's a little jokey joke. And not the most self-aware joke, to be fair, but he was very calculated with his picks. LeBron was. He had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Anthony Davis, and Klay Thompson. And if you look at their status after the season,
amazing.
Just some of them might be available to move around.
It's amazing. This reminds me.
No strategy whatsoever there.
One of my favorite movies is Hunt for Red October. You familiar with Hunt for Red October? Right? And there's a famous line from it where Admiral's on they're in the submarine. And he says, the average Ruski doesn't take a dump without a plan, son. And that's what LeBron James, he is a thoughtful guy. All of this was planned, right? It just didn't just happen to have all these guys that are.
It doesn't look accidental at all. And it's just another little tidbit from last night that's just the perfect ending to the last 2 weeks of chaos. So unlike what has been speculated heading into the trade deadline, New Orleans is not going to sit Anthony Davis for the rest of the season, but they are going to have a few caveats, according to Woj. He tweeted, here's what to expect with Anthony Davis's usage the rest of the way with the Pelicans. Fewer, if any, back-to-backs and a reduction in minutes from his 37 per game. Now, this makes sense for a couple reasons, because obviously if Davis were to suffer a serious injury, that would certainly impact his trade value, and they're not looking to contend for a playoff spot now, so by limiting Davis's minutes, it'll help with their draft slot, and they'll give them an opportunity to play their younger players, since obviously he's not going to be there anymore.
Yeah, look, they want to lose, and this is a way. The number one way to tank is to not play your best players, right? Like Marc Gasol, who got traded yesterday. Like, here's how big last night's game is. Marc Gasol is now a Toronto Raptor. Like, that's a huge move. Former defensive player.
Just outside the playoffs.
If you go back to last year, watch the Memphis Grizzlies. They'd be leading in the second half, in the fourth quarter, going in the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden Marc Gasol is put on ice, like not playing at all, because they want to lose. I think the whole thing is terrible for the league. Like, even the tampering jokes. Like, imagine you're sitting there in any of these other markets, and these guys are joking about tampering, which clearly is happening, and LeBron and the Lakers are part of. I'm sure Adam Silver's fielding phone calls. Like, are you kidding me?
It's not the best look on what is supposed to be like a cheeky, fun evening.
I mean, it was funny, but I also
if you want to take a positive look at them sitting Anthony Davis, it does impact Karl Anthony Towns because he's vying with Anthony Davis for all NBA honors, and he can earn millions in incentives if he takes that from Davis. So
good for Karl Anthony Towns.
You know, spread the love around. Finally, much like the Eagles and Nick Foles, the Steelers are reportedly considering using the transition tag on Le'Veon Bell to sign and trade him. Well, that tag and trade plan violates the CBA, and it would also require the cooperation of Le'Veon Bell and his agent, which we're imagining is very unlikely to happen. But he can't be traded unless he signs the transition tender. If he doesn't sign it, he can't be traded. He's going to end up staying with the Steelers. So this little note in the CBA, Article 4, Section 8, that basically says that if you a club extending a required tender must, first so long as the tender is extended, have good faith intention to employ the player. So basically, if you put the transition tag on it, it's basically because you want to keep the player, but you're still negotiating a longer-term contract, which is not the intention with Nick Foles, and it's certainly not the intention with Le'Veon Bell. So I do like this because it actually does protect the player from having another year where they shouldn't be and keeping them from getting a long-term contract. And obviously, they can get injured, and these are not guaranteed contracts. But it's going to make things interesting for the Steelers and for the Eagles because they have these incredibly valuable players that you would want to get pieces for, but the CBA is, protecting the player from this. So
it feels like
it's going to get complicated.
It feels like it's complicated, but there does feel like there's some wiggle room, right? You have to have good faith. But again, the Steelers can say, look, we showed good faith in extending a long-term offer before. And even if they transition tagged him, we're willing to offer a long-term. Again, it might not be the terms that he'd accept.
I think the Steelers have more ground to stand on in fighting the CBA clause than the Eagles do.
Yes.
Because the Eagles have Carson Wentz. So it's like no one's going to believe that you're really negotiating a long-term contract with Nick Foles when you have Carson Wentz.
But it doesn't
and the
say
Steelers literally have offered Le'Veon Bell.
I understand. It doesn't say